Private firms still free to import fuel. Government Tuesday, January 2, 2024. Fuel trucks destined for Uganda queue at Matayos Town on the Kisumu-Busia highway awaiting clearance on October 12, 2021. Government has allowed private firms to continue bringing petroleum products into the country. Photo file by Busein Samilu. What you need to know. Dispute with Kenyan traders blocking use of pipeline threatens country's supplies as Unoc left unable to commence monopoly imports this month. Thank you for reading. NATION.AFRICA show plans. Government has allowed private firms to continue bringing petroleum products into the country, staving off a looming risk of shortages and possible steep increases in pump prices resulting from an ongoing standoff with Kenyan fuel traders. Many motorists will likely view this development as a New Year present as it now ensures the country guarantees a steady supply of fuel until the trade wrangle is resolved in a regional court. The dispute with the Kenyans has delayed official plans for the Uganda National Oil Company, Unoc, to assume monopoly importation of fuel into the country as outlined under a new law enacted last year, thereby setting the stage for a possible crisis. Officials and Unoc mandarins yesterday confirmed the decision as a stopgap measure in the face of anticipated disruptions. The authorization to private dealers was made under a provision in the recently enacted petroleum law that is designed to ensure the country does not plunge into crisis in case of supply disruptions. Uganda will continue to use the Kenyan importation system with the Ugandan oil marketing companies OMCs confirming their import requirements through their affiliates in Kenya, until the government of Uganda secures clearance for Unoc importation. From the government of Kenya, Ms. Irene Bateby, the Energy Ministry Permanent Secretary, said. The country will continue receiving petroleum products, she assured this newspaper. Uganda switched its petroleum import policy under the new law, phasing out reliance on what it determined to be expensive fuel brought in by private firms, a policy switch which angered middlemen in Kenya resulting in the ongoing dispute. Unoc was supposed to start exclusive importation this month, but the agency ran into headwinds in November last year after Kenya's Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority (EPRA) found it impossible to grant a key petroleum import license. Under the license, Unoc would have had access to the Kenyan oil pipeline to bring in oil products at a much lower cost. After registering a branch in Kenya, Unoc in September applied to EPRA, seeking to be registered as one of Kenya's OMCs so that they can freely import and export petroleum products through the fellow East African country. Daily Monitor's Kenyan sister platform, Daily Nation reported then, that EPRA declined Unoc's request on grounds that the latter failed to provide evidence of operating 5 licensed retail stations in Kenya, or of operating a licensed depot in Kenya. Other issues raised were that Unoc has not achieved a minimum annual turnover of $10 million, shish $1.51 billion, for the last 3 years, which is a requirement for applicants with end-user operations outside Kenya. The Daily Nation story also said EPRA indicated Unoc did not prove the requisite annual sales volumes of 6.6 million liters of either super petrol, automotive gasoil, diesel, and/or Jet A1 kerosene in Kenya. As this issue was being resolved at a bilateral level, 3 Kenyan concerns including Royani Energy Limited, John Kinethia Mwangi and Acacia Ridge Construction filed a suit number E014 of 2023 in the High Court of Machakos, asking it to order EPRA not to grant a license to Unoc. In their petition, they also argued that Unoc did not have the $10 million turnover covering 3 years as required by the Kenyan authorities, had not sold 6.6 million liters of petroleum products and does not have the 5 retail stations and depots within Kenya to fulfill EPRA conditions, and that it would be bad for the Kenyan government to waive those requirements. Subsequently, the Deputy Registrar of the High Court of Machakos issued a November 7, 2023 court order which blocked Unoc's access to the required license for them to trade freely. Uganda's Attorney General, Mr. Kyawa Kiwanuka responded by dragging EPRA to the East African Court of Justice (EACJ), seeking orders for the license to be issued to Unoc as well as for a dismissal of the Machakos petition. Uganda's case at the EACJ partly relies on free trade commitments made under the East African Community Treaty to which the 2 countries are signatories. Yesterday, Unoc's head of legal and corporate affairs, Mr. Peter Mulisa said the ongoing dispute scuttled earlier plans, prompting them to extend the proposed January monopoly takeover by the agency to a possible date in late February or later in March this year. The resolution of the court case which we are expecting before the end of this January will determine the way forward, but what I can assure the country is that we shall win the case because any landlocked country internationally has right of access to sea and thus we shall go ahead and import the products. The only thing affecting us is the delays now, he said. Assurances. Mr. Mulisa reiterated that Unoc's main aim is to ensure that high pump prices that affecting both private motorists, transporters and general trade in the country are reduced. As the country awaits the EACJ decision, the principal communication officer of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Mr. Solomon Muida, said private firms have been given the go-ahead to continue importing under the current open tender system, OTS, whose implementation was ended by the new law. For starters, OMCs always make orders of their fuel needs months in advance. So, the January and February consignments were ordered in October and in early November before we got the law that empowers Unoc, he said. Mr. Muida referred to President Museveni's November 23, 2023 signature into law of the Petroleum Supply Amendment Bill, 2023, that was passed by Parliament in October. The act gave exclusive rights to Unoc to import all petroleum products and then resell them to over 40 OMCs, or private firms in the country. But due to the EPRA frustration, Mr. Muida said Energy Minister, Ms. Ruth Nankabirwa was prompted to invoke Section 3H of the Act, which empowers her to determine how petroleum products reach the country, including authorization to private businesses until the current storm dies down. Under Section 3H, Unoc or such other person nominated by the Minister, with the approval of Cabinet, can import all petroleum products, as listed in the third schedule, destined for the Ugandan market to guarantee security of supply of petroleum products in the country. When President Museveni signed the new petroleum law, it set off a chain of events, including angering Kenyan middlemen who have long enjoyed the freedom to import petroleum products destined for Uganda at a high cost. It is suspected that through their lobbying, the middlemen contributed to the dispute that has stymied Unoc's plans. The items listed in the third schedule are petrol, diesel, Jet A-1 and dual-purpose kerosene. The law says importation and supply of these products destined for the Ugandan market to private oil marketing companies shall be undertaken by the Uganda National Oil Company Limited. However, it also says, the minister may, by statutory instrument under exceptional circumstances, nominate such other person, with the approval of Cabinet, to import and supply all or a portion of petroleum products listed in the third schedule to this Act. The intention of this provision is, to guarantee security of supply of petroleum products in the country. When contacted yesterday, Mr. Anthony Ogolo, chairperson of the Sustainable Energies and Petroleum Association, an umbrella body of over 40 OMCs in Uganda, confirmed that the ministry gave them a go-ahead until when Unoc sorts itself out. Inside new plan. In the new plan, which has met stiff opposition from Kenyan oil dealers, the Uganda government intended to replace the OTS with its government-to-government, G2G, import mechanism. Under the G2G, Unoc's trading partner, Vital, a Swiss-based Dutch global energy and commodities giant, will purchase the products from its Gulf region counterparts and later sell them to Unoc at a seaport. Unoc would then transport them partly through the Kenya oil pipeline to Uganda. This will end the OTS where Kenyan OMCs are currently purchasing petroleum products as middlemen from monthly tender winners and reselling onward to Ugandan OMCs. This arrangement adds another cost layer, factoring in their margins, that ultimately make pump prices in Uganda higher than they should ideally be. Mr. Nankabirwa told Parliament in October last year that Vital signed a 5-year supply contract with Unoc and will deliver beyond the country's expectations. The partner will be financing the business by providing a working capital facility backed by its global balance sheet and working with Unoc to ensure competitive pricing of petroleum products. To guarantee the security of supply, the partnership has ensured that there will be buffer stocks in Uganda and Tanzania to be called upon should there be supply disruptions to the country, she said. In the same spirit, President Museveni, in a letter posted on his X handle on November 5, assured inland East African countries of the expected availability of competitively priced petroleum products, free of manipulation by middlemen. The whole of Uganda, northwestern Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, western Kenya, South Sudan and eastern DRC, will benefit, he said. Museveni slams critics. The president told of critics of the new plan, including Ugandan OMCs to back, observing that whereas Uganda started the G2G migration journey in March last year, some crooks in his government and other actors working with Kenyan middlemen were frustrating the plan because it would kick them out of business. We have now contracted bulk and refinery suppliers able to give us the lower prices. I have discussed this with H. Ruto, the president of Kenya, and our delegation is now in Dar es Salaam, discussing with Her Excellency Samia Suluhu. But, however, the internal parasites who have been cheating their country, have launched a social media and mainstream media campaign against our liberation resistance plan against Okusirwa, being overcharged, he wrote. Kenyan OMCs are middlemen, for example, he said, had few months ago sold a ton of diesel to Ugandan importers at $118 compared to the $83 charged by bulk suppliers or refiners, petrol at $97.50 per ton compared to $61.50 of the refiners or bulk suppliers, and kerosene at $114 per ton compared to $79 charged by bulk suppliers or refiners. President Museveni noted that Uganda currently spends about $2 billion, SH's $7.4 trillion, to import 2.5 billion liters of petroleum annually, a figure that could substantially reduce once Unoc takes over. Mr. Muida said yesterday that Uganda consumes between 185 million and 200 million liters of fuel per month. Separately, the Energy Ministry spokesman said even as the EACJ prepares to rule on the matter, the governments of Uganda and Kenya are holding talks to ensure that this fuel import dispute is resolved peacefully. At the end of December last year, we received a delegation from the Ministry of Energy of Kenya and discussed the matter, and the main thing now is to see how to remove the court order that was issued by the Machakos High Court, he said. _email protected_monitor. Empower Uganda.